Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for another indie comic review, and for this indie comic review I'll be reviewing these comics, Little Monsters and The Joneses. And as you can see here, one is from Image and the other one is from AWA Upshot. So now it's time to move on to the first one that I'll be reviewing on the channel before moving on to the next one. So things will be starting off with Little Monsters by Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen. And as you can see here, we've got quite an interesting cover, and the way that this cover is done, it's done to sort of reflect something that takes place in the past with this story. And it works really well, to which I give this cover a 7 out of 10. I'll now move into the internal art, which I'll show you around the beginning, middle and end. And of course, we'll get to see some of the things of what's happening with the story. So this is the fur art around the beginning, and this actually takes place in the past. And we learn that this is happening in the year 1763 in a place called the Black Forest. I'll now move towards the middle. And as we jump towards the middle, we have the character of Billy, who has, well, gotten his first kill for a while. It's the only way to put it. And of course you can see why these children are different, or they're called the Little Monsters, as they have fangs like vampires. So now let's move towards the end. And as we move towards the end, we have the character who was being looked for in the beginning, and his name is called Romy. And as you can see here, he's making his way sort of like back through this forest, which we seem to see at the beginning of the story. And whilst Billy is catching up with Yui and Bats and a couple of the others, he encounters another complete stranger, who's also about the same age as him. Well, looks the same age as him. So for the internal art, I gave it a 7 out of 10. Moving into the story, did we get any references to the previous issue? No, but it could have helped in some areas, I feel. Moving into the area of time, of course, we got the time period only once for 1763, but I also felt like the creator forgot to address that, okay, we're now addressing sort of like where things are taking things presently, and we're no longer in this time again. That really needed to be fixed up. But did it take away from what the story was? A little bit, but not a lot. The location, well, we do now learn now that this takes place not far from the Black Forest, but I also feel that we're missing like other locations here, which would not hurt to be included in the story. The cast of characters, of the ones that I could make out, we had Romy, we had Billy, Yui and Bats, but we also had the twins, but I noticed that Jeff Lemire forgot to include their names in this. And being that this is coming out monthly, it does not hurt to help bring up the cast of characters' names again. It's important, especially for me, the reader, and other readers, to know who or which character is talking to who, and who the other characters are, so we don't forget who they are. But overall, moving into the story rating, I'm still enjoying the story. I'm quite interested to see where it's going to go with the third issue. So, overall rating, I gave a 7 out of 10. It's now time to move on to the Joneses. So now it's time to move into the Joneses. And starting off with first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that's happening inside of the story? Not quite, but I can understand what the story creator is trying to do. And that is trying to make out that the Joneses are trying to work out a way to just be like any other normal family in the neighborhood. But of course, with the Joneses, they have their own secret identity too. So for this cover, I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. I feel like another cover would have been better for this one instead of this one. So now it's time to move into the internal art, as well as seeing some of the things that are happening in regards to the first story, as we look around the beginning, middle, and of course the end. Now this is some art around the beginning of the story. And of course we've got one of the first people connected to the Joneses. And we learn that this character's name is Tommy later on in the book. It would have been nice if it was addressed a little bit earlier. But I'll get to that later when talking about the story. And of course, he starts to encounter some bullying, and in comes his sister. And of course, she gives them a bit of a right ass whooping. As if to say, don't pick on my bloody brother. Really nice, I do like it. As we start to jump towards the middle of the story, we have the character of the Joneses who've gone to basically attend the meeting, and something is happening to their mother. And of course, Tommy, who also sees her in the condition, is also called to help, and we get to see what his power actually is. Moving towards the end of the story, we have the mother back again, and we get to see the husband, and you actually get to see something with these two characters. I must admit, it still needs to clean up a bit in regards to some areas of the story, like in addressing the characters. And this is sort of like after the first turn of events that we see in this issue. So for the internal art, I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. Now it's time to move to the story. In the area of time, of course, this is being a new book, so I won't need the part for references. We did get next day, so we know that this is taking place sort of like one day to the next of what we're seeing at the moment. The location, we get Carlisle, Illinois, outside of Chicago. And of course, we also get another location which is sort of pointed out as sort of like 1 mile away outside of where they actually live. And in that, you get to see like another hero of sorts that seems to work with him, that I got the impression of. And the thing is, in this AW Upshot, they are speaking of like the family as sort of like reborns, sort of like people who have awakened a superpower. within them, and in this case it seems to go through the whole family, including father, mother, son, daughter. The cast of characters, I really wish the cast of characters was a little bit more clear in this, but overall I did find it quite an interesting story. We have Marcus, who we see up front here, who's the husband. Now, then there was Judy and Sonia, who were characters that were met in the story. Then we have Tommy, who was being bullied at the beginning. Then we end up meeting another character by the name of Spin. Now, we don't know who he actually is yet and how he's related to the family. We also get to see a bit of a somewhat political difference between the husband and wife, where the wife is sort of like, she doesn't like those of the right, but the husband is not afraid to speak up of the errors of the left as well. And I really somewhat like that. And it shows a little bit of balance in the issue. But I'll say one thing. It didn't flood the text with it. It did not flood the story with it. And that, I think, is really good, especially for a beginning. As long as it doesn't carry over like a dead horse on a road just waiting to be filled with maggots. This story might actually turn out alright. Well, until then, have yourself an awesome day, and let's keep it colourful.